All right. What's up, everybody? My people in Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, all the way to Staten Island, my home borough, Brooklyn. Back at another video. And this is going to be another entry to the greatest team ever series. This video is going to be on the 2009 New Orleans Saints. I know it's been a while since I've updated this series and done a video like this, but hey, Super Bowl week's upon us. My favorite year, my favorite time of the sports year. So I was like, hey, why not? NFL videos for the next couple weeks. But anyway, let's get into the video. Let's give a little backdrop. Of course, in 2004, the city of New Orleans was devastated by Hurricane Katrina. Just completely just demolished the city. You know, you see the flooding, where there was massive flooding. People had to be relocated to the Superdome for shelter. And it was very unfortunate. I mean, some people, especially people in ghettos, didn't have much already. And now they just, what the little they did have, they lost it to this hurricane. Very unfortunate, and it shook up the nation, mainly because the president at the time, Bush, wasn't doing much about it, and a lot of people felt race has something to do with this. And of course, we all know the infamous Kanye West, George Bush does not care about black people comment. And a lot of people felt that way, but you know, the city was going through it, and the football team wasn't doing much better, didn't do much to uplift the spirits. You know, the Saints were, for the longest time, were known as the Aints. You know, the Saints fans were the ones who popularized showing up to games wearing bags over their heads out of embarrassment to hide their shame. You know, they were losers. The Saints were losers. I know they had a few years with Ricky Jackson, the Dome Patrol, but they were losers, man. They were a losing franchise. And even the basketball team, you know, they contemplated relocating to Oklahoma City permanently. That's where they were playing while the city was getting itself together. They contemplated about moving to Oklahoma City permanently, but fortunately that didn't happen. But the city was absolutely devastated. It was very unfortunate, but things all changed when a young man from Texas who was playing for the San Diego Chargers hit free agency. You know, Drew Brees spent his first 5 seasons in the NFL with the Chargers, playing with LaDainian Tomlinson. They had a year they made the playoffs in '04. Very talented team. But in 2005, against the Denver Broncos, Drew Brees injured his shoulder, and I believe the Chargers released him after the fact. They were ready to move on with another young quarterback they had named Phillip Rivers. And in free agency, Drew Brees contemplated about going to Miami, play for the Dolphins. You know, it's Miami, the 305. Lots of things to do, beautiful beaches, great weather, lots of things. He thought about going to the Dolphins, but he ended up going to New Orleans because he wanted to uplift the city, a city that had been devastated by a bitch named Katrina. They all hired a young offensive mastermind who was assistant coach to Mr. Bill Parcells of the Dallas Cowboys, Mr. Sean Payton. Okay, they were going to lead the Saints into the future. Drew Brees, Sean Payton. They drafted a rookie named Marquez Colston and USC legend Reggie Bush. In their first game in the Superdome on Monday Night Football in 2006 against the Atlanta Falcons, led by Michael Vick, a Saints player by the name, I think his name was Steve Gleason, if I remember correctly. Correct me in the comment section. I believe his name was Steve Gleason. He blocked a punt, and the Saints scored a touchdown, and the Superdome erupted. No, it was signs of a great season and for an even better future. The Saints that year ended up making the playoffs, where they lost in the NFC Championship game to the Chicago Bears. You know, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, the Bears, who went on to play the Colts in the Super Bowl. You know, terrible ending, but you know, hey, the Saints had never came close to the doorstep of the Super Bowl prior to this, so a lot of Saints fans were pleased, especially in the aftermath of Katrina. The next 2 years, the Saints missed the playoffs, but 2009 they were hell bent on winning a Super Bowl. They signed. Prior to the 2008 season, they signed middle linebacker Jonathan Vilma from the U, who was formerly of the New York Jets. And heading into the 2009 season, they signed Darren Sharper. And let me say this about Darren Sharper. Had Darren Sharper not gone to prison for rape, had he not raped those women, Darren Sharper would be in the Hall of Fame. Darren Sharper was an absolute beast. This dude was, go look up his numbers, go watch his highlights. This dude was a beast of a safety. He was one of the greatest safeties of the 2000s, and that's saying a lot. 2000 was probably the golden age of safeties, and Darren Sharper was definitely one of the best. Absolutely underrated player because he's in prison for rape. And had he not raped those women, he would be in the Hall of Fame. No doubt about it. This dude was a great player. But anyway, back to the topic. They added Darren Sharper in free agency. They signed him from the Vikings, you know, to help improve their defense. And they hired Greg Williams, who was known around the league as a great defensive mind. Despite the new talent, the Saints finished 20th in points allowed, 25th in yards allowed. Now, not a great defense, but not particularly great defense, but the offense stood out, of course. number one across the board. They ran through the NFL. They went 13-0. Started the season 13-0, including a victory over the Bill Belichick New England Patriots. They dropped their last 3 games of the season, but they finished the season 13-3, number one seed and home field advantage out the playoffs. Let me say this. When the Saints are good, the Superdome is rocking, man. It's probably the number one, home field advantage in the NFL. I mean, for a franchise, for a fan base that, started the brown paper bag trend and called their team the Aints, when the Saints are winning, they are just probably the rowdiest, most passionate fan base in the NFL. Who that? Who that said go beat them Saints? Nobody. And when the divisional round, they played the Arizona Cardinals, who were the defending NFC champions. Kurt Warner, Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden. And the Saints just beat the dog shit out of Kurt Warner, ended up knocking him out of the game. And we all know why. But Kurt Warner, that was the end of Kurt Warner's day, and that was the end of his career. He ended up retiring after this game, and the Saints emerged victorious 45-14 to advance the NFC Championship game for the second time in franchise history, but for the first time in the Superdome. And they faced the Brett Favre Minnesota Vikings. Brett Favre and Adrian Peterson. Brett Favre had one of the best seasons of his career at age 40. 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. They went 12-4. Adrian Peterson, established himself as probably the best running back in the league at that time. And they gave the Saints a run for their money. But then Adrian Peterson came down with a case of fumbleitis. And that Saints defense, they had the bounty on Brett Favre. And they did their damnedest to knock him out. And the Vikings almost won the game. They were going to end up winning the game. But then Brett Favre did what Brett Favre threw best. In clutch time, he threw an interception to the Saints cornerback, Mr. Tracy Porter. Not the last we would hear his name. Tracy Porter intercepted the pass. The game went into overtime. And the kicker made the field goal to give the Saints a 31-28 overtime victory and send them to the Super Bowl for the first time and today only time in franchise history. The Saints were marching to the Super Bowl for the first time ever, where they were going to face off against the Indianapolis Colts, led by league MVP Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne. They had what's that guy's name? Receiver's name? Pierre Garçon. That's his name. Pierre Garçon. That Joseph Adai. Joseph Adai was still there, running back. Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis. The Colts were no joke. They started out 14-0 before losing their last 2 games. A lot of people had the Colts winning this game, and for great reason. But the Saints showed why they were the NFC champions. Why God should have bet money on them. Of course, coming out of halftime, we saw something that we never thought we ever seen in the Super Bowl or in any game period. Coming out of halftime, the Saints opted for an onside kick. And it worked. They got the ball back and they put the pressure on the Colts. It was 24-17 at one point in the game, and then Peyton Manning pulled a Brett Favre. He threw an interception to Tracy Porter, and he ran back in the house for a touchdown to submit a 31-17 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. And the Aints, a.k.a. the Saints, for the first time ever, were Super Bowl champions. Years after Katrina devastated the city, flooded the city, ruined lives, and unfortunately probably took some lives. After missing the playoffs the prior 2 years, after dropping the last 3 games of the regular season, the Saints were finally on top as champions of the National Football League. They were the Aints no more. And of course, Drew Brees was named the most valuable player of the Super Bowl, as he should have been. And that was it for them. But tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you rank this team amongst the greatest teams of all time? Are they top 10, top 20, top 30? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Super Bowl's almost upon us. I can't wait. I'm so excited. See you all.